So welcome to everyone to the Growth Show. Thank you for joining us. For those of you returning, welcome back, and for those of us who new, welcome to the Digital Growth Show. We tried to keep it non death by PowerPoint. So we like to have open and honest discussion and kind of bring in real world opinions. And I think we've got an amazing guest today.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a long-time friend of ours as well, which is nice. It's good when I guess it's been great that we've been able to sort of call upon people that we've worked with personally. People who are kind of genuine sort of experts in their industry and in their field, and people who are happy to come in and sort of add value to to the discussion. So yeah, super excited today. So I think on that note, shall we get Helen on?
She's going probably incredibly red at the moment, where we're just singing her praise.
Thank you.
Hey Helen, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, great to have you. Great to have you with us today. So what we were going to do is me and Andrew had kind of scheduled to do an introduction for you, but realized that we would probably get it badly wrong. We would have definitely used the word veteran, which I think is a big no-no. So
I'm glad I came on early then.
All right, so I think it'd be much better if you tell everyone who you are and a bit more about you, Helen. I think that'd be awesome.
Thank you. So my name's Helen Tatham. I moved to Dubai in 2004. And with the intention of taking a bit of a break from work, from being full-time working in the UK on a country estate, which was very nice. But but lo and behold, after about 3 months, I ended up setting up a real estate company. So that was Dubai Luxury Homes back in those days. And I've been in real estate ever since then, really. Obviously, the freehold market came into being in 2002 in Dubai. So I've always felt that it's been sort of a really lucky landing to be in Dubai through this exciting period of, a freehold market building. I mean, there were very few, if any other opportunities in the world that you could have done this. So having my own company to start with, Dubai Luxury Homes, followed by Habtoor Properties. For Rashid Al Habtoor, I was the GM. Knight Frank, I joined them to head up their residential division. Decided then to set up my own company again, Prime Places Real Estate, in beginning of 2014, which was quite an interesting time because the market was quite sort of fluid and booming then. And then, so Prime Places was going until June 2019 when we merged our team with Savills Real Estate. So Savills being a nice British brand that I'm proud to work for. It was a nice sort of opportunity to take. And during all that time, I've been involved in residential primarily, sales, leasing, property management, also very involved in the business development and marketing side of things. And yeah, I have just seen a lot of changes during those 16 years, coming from sort of such an immature market that was finding its feet. With obviously no portals. We used to, look up sort of availability of properties in the papers, in the properties and freehold section of the Gulf News. Property Finder came around in 2007, so that was a sort of new world to go into, followed by Bayet. And yeah, that's how kind of, it's evolved. And so yeah, it's been sort of navigating that course over the last 16 years, and then arriving in 2020 with COVID. So
I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned this is a place that's changed so quickly, and the speed of change has been crazy over these last 16 years. But how does that compare to the speed of change over the last 3 or 4 months? Because I mean, it must be fairly similar in some respects, right? But it's just been how has it been?
Well, we've just been put in sort of a shuttle of fast forward, haven't we, into a place I think we would have ended up being from a technological sort of perspective, but we've just had to get on with it. And you know, I suppose, you know, up until this year, you know, every year has been exciting because there's been change, whether it's been in technology, whether it's been in regulation, whether it's been in new developments, you know, new laws, everything. But yeah, this year's been really quite special in that in that regard. It's you know, it's been a lot to take on board very quickly. But the stronger, you know, the strong amongst us will pull through it, and I think it will be a better place. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess the speed at which sort of COVID hit, it wasn't obviously overnight. We knew this was kind of bubbling away. But I mean, what was that kind of initial impact? Because I guess this is, you know, it's a very kind of face-to-face, personal type of business, right? Especially when you're talking maybe residential.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of kind of personal kind of trust and credibility that's involved in, and especially I'd say residential sales and stuff. But how's that kind of changed over the last few months? You know, maybe where you haven't had the luxury of, you know, meeting people firsthand.
So, you know, just to sort of rewind a little bit into the beginning of this year, where we were with the property market, and you know, things were very active. You know, transactionally, you know, numbers were up compared to this January and February last year, for instance, and you know, sort of when COVID really sort of came into being in Dubai, because it had already started elsewhere, obviously, and we had to take it on here. You know, the lockdown during April, I think, was a shock to everybody's system. So we'd gone from, you know, quite a sort of, I suppose, you know, quite an active time into being completely locked down. So, you know, our industry relies heavily on human interaction and viewings. So we were hit really hard, and you know, literally the lack of viewings and the lack of access in, or, you know, even out of your own home during April meant that April was practically dead. And I think, you know, we embraced it as a company. We had, you know, Savills were, you know, they're very sort of advanced in their virtual learning sessions and self-improvement, and they were very supported through that time over the 6 weeks that we were locked down, literally. And you know, so I think it was an era of self-betterment, and also looking and exploring of new initiatives as well, and what the way forward was. So, you know, as a team, we kept very much sort of interactive by way of team calls, you know, and I think there was more interaction of different divisions and bouncing ideas off of each other, you know, than would have naturally happened in a normal environment.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, because I think I was just going to say, Andrew, we've heard that from a lot of people, but sort of team cohesiveness has been much stronger when we've all been on Zoom as opposed to sharing the same office, right? It's quite bizarre how things like this work out.
Yeah.
But in your sector, you can say then that there's a lot more sort of collaboration, and maybe was it kind of strategic thinking between different teams that wouldn't normally happen as frequently? I guess, is that what it is?
Yeah, and I think just quite naturally everybody was supporting everyone else, and you know, that was a really nice thing that came, and I think the team has bonded much more, despite the fact that we weren't, you know, sitting in the same office together. It was really, you know, quite sort of impressive. From a client perspective, it was difficult, but one of the things that I took away from it is that we got to know our clients so much better. We had other things to talk about, you know, in terms of, it wasn't just a call about their property or about their intention to buy or whatever. It was like, how are you? How's your family? Where are you? You know, and so it got far more sort of personal with clients. So we saw it as an opportunity to build those relationships, you know, beyond just being, or just, of course, but you know, other than being their real estate agent. So yeah, you need to, you know, you need to have those takeaways from it and actually learn by it, because, you know, it can be fruitful going forward with those relationships as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
How fast did that happen? Like, I mean, when we started moving out of the office to that work from home environment, we transitioned pretty quickly as far as setting up online appointments, online meetings, online pitches. There wasn't really much of a gap. Did you find that, because obviously you're dealing with, as you said, more of a personal relationship, did you find that, you know, people were very open to that, or they were reluctant, or was there a gap? How did that happen?
No, I think people reacted really well to it. You know, I think there was a lot of, you know, a lot of people adapting very quickly to the new environment. As I say, as a company, we handled it really well. But, you know, just dealing with our clients as well, we didn't, you know, there were no particular issues. In actual fact, ironically, because people weren't traveling, we were able to connect with people far easier. So, you know, people were more available, naturally, less busy, because you just, you know, I mean, you might be busy with a complete schedule of team or Zoom calls or something where you can't turn up late anymore. You have to be there on time. You know, I think people just became sort of far more organized, and so it was actually easier. And as I say, I think hopefully a lot of people have taken away from this and realized the benefits of it, really, and made the most, you know, taking the good out of it.
So I think just so, because you know, for those who don't know, like, Dubai is kind of opening up now slowly. You know, people are kind of returning back to offices. There's a lot of people choosing to work from home now, I think, which is I guess the biggest sort of cultural difference for where we are. You know, a lot of companies are leaving it optional for their employees. But I guess from your standpoint, does that now I mean, what happens moving forward? Is it, you know, this kind of new culture, the new change that happened where, you know, people were perhaps more disciplined, they turn up to meetings, you know, everyone was kind of a little bit more focused on actually where they need to be and what they need to be doing at a specific time. Does that continue, or do we kind of go back to how it was previously? And what would you prefer?
So we as a company, we did a lockdown survey with our database, and we put it out on social media as well. And one of the things that came back from it was that 50% of those that responded are looking more at working from home, which I actually thought was quite a high percentage. We knew it would have an impact, but I was quite surprised it was 50%. And so, you know, I think for a lot of people, it will turn into the new norm to an extent, maybe not as, you know, as sort of as harsh as the lockdown period itself, but I think we've certainly seen from you know, from a property perspective, that people are moving home to have more space and have a proper office. That has been, you know, a very dominating factor, you know, especially for villas, and, you know, and just moving into bigger space. So I think people are anticipating this to be part of their future.
Wow, that's interesting. Just out of interest, when was that survey?
Results aren't out yet, so I shouldn't really
Oh,
say
they
it.
are. So
No, but I
it's
mean,
recent.
we took the survey in, where are we? I think it was in May. And it was kind of still feeding, and we're preparing the results of it now. But as a take, you know, that's one of the main things from a property perspective that I think is going to have quite an impact on the type of property people choose, and also just the, you know, so the way that they work.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, the reason I ask is we also had a survey which was just an internal one, and we had about 20 to 25% of our team say they were absolutely desperate to come back to the office, and couldn't wait.
yeah.
I was just, I mean, I'm away at the moment, but I was looking at our internal Slack messages the other day, and Andrew, you were in the office, was it yesterday or the day before? And who else was in the office with you?
At the moment, it's me and Christy. Just you know,
Just-
just yeah. There's I don't know where those 22, 23% people disappeared to, but yeah, we just I think there's a comfort level going back. I mean, I had a glimpse. I don't know about, you know, from a personal perspective, Helen, but I had a glimpse to my old life on Sunday, which was, you know, 4 meetings in and around the city, and an hour and 45 minutes, and it was horrible. I mean, genuinely, it was, and I shouldn't, but possibly some of those people that I visited are watching now. Actually, I've just got to be careful, but not horrible meeting them, but obviously just more. I sat back down, you know, when I got back to the office, I was like, I've been traveling for an hour and 45 minutes today, which is just such a waste of time. You know, either a time that could have been spent basically seeing more people or doing some work, or even grabbing a beer. I mean, it literally, there was a lot of time there that was spent. So I don't know, because obviously in sales and meeting people, it's been such a huge part of personal relationships. But I feel like, I mean, I met some people that I've only met on Zoom and then met them for real. And it was very, very bizarre. And I even had a meeting this week where everyone was wearing masks in the meeting. And that was a challenge, because you couldn't see their facial expressions. You could only see this. So, I mean, it was very, you know, and I have a challenge anyway, obviously with my beard, but as far as that, so I mean, do you think that everything's going to snap back to kind of, I need to view this, or, you know, do you think you know that your clients are going to start traveling again and not going to be as available? What do you think?
I don't think it's going to go back to what it was. I've personally dealt with clients, as have my team, whereby, you know, the clients, execs of whatever company, have typically travelled 50 to 70% of the year. And gone. And I know, Amit, you know, you were off to America quite a lot, weren't you? It was difficult to get you on the ground here sometimes. But you know, they've absolutely said that their life will change. They are not going to be travelling so much, from a, I suppose, from a personal perspective, because, you know, obviously we don't know when this virus is going to come under control in the short to medium term. But they're actually seeing the benefits of you know, being at home more, and their values of life, and you know, or the value that you derive from spending more quality time with the family. But also the you know, people have got used to these Zoom calls now. So why get on a plane? You know, you're talking about, you know, an hour and 45 minutes of travel, but I mean, you know, multiply that tenfold for flying somewhere else and being away from the family and all of that. You know, I really do think that more meetings will be conducted, you know, on video conferencing. So I think it will have a lasting effect, but we don't know to what extent yet. You know.
Yeah, I think we're some way away before people are comfortable kind of traveling frequently again. I think that's for sure. you know, maybe even 18 months to 2 years away. So no, so I think that certainly helps. I think one of the things, Helen, you know, during this time when obviously things have changed, you know, obviously day-to-day operations still needed to continue. Where did technology come in and sort of fill that gap? So, you know, obviously, you know, you couldn't do face-to-face meetings. Was that maybe Zoom there? But where else along that process did technology really come in and play a part? And was that kind of helpful? Was it a positive experience?
Yeah, I mean, so we've always had these tools to hand, but there's never been the real impetus to actually put them into action. So, you know, we advertise properties with images, and the quality of images has improved over time because it's become more important as a first stop to look for a property. Videos have always been there lurking in the background, but it's almost, you know, it's almost obligatory to put a video on your listing now. Not only do the portals rank your listing higher if it's got more visuals and sort of video footage. Matterport, I have a friend who runs a Matterport company and his business is booming. That's the 3D walkthroughs, and, you know, virtual viewings. Property Finder for number one, they were doing virtual viewings, not virtual, live viewings. It kind of fizzled a bit after the lockdown because the live viewings weren't really necessary. So, you know, that was pushed aside a little bit. But you know, I think in terms of virtual tours and videos, I mean, we're seeing much more of that now. I mean, certainly from I suppose from a property perspective, you know, Dubai's always been amazing at being sort of up there at the front of technology. And I think their adaptation to online property transfers through the DLD, and, you know, Ijari being online and Diwa being online, which it was, but I mean, it's just come to the fore now. So I think we've been very lucky to be surrounded by sort of cutting edge technology, and they've really jumped on it quickly to help the processes through. I mean, the major thing for us was the online transfers, you know, where a seller where a seller would typically fly in from abroad to make the transfer of his property because it was mandatory that he was there in person or had a power of attorney or a lawyer or whatever. You know, and literally they can video conference to confirm everything, and not have to travel into the country. And I see that as a long-lasting feature of our real estate now, which is huge.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I think it makes so much sense. I've just gone through the very painful task of buying a property in the UK, and doing that during COVID was absolutely horrendous. And it's funny because, you know, the last few weeks on the show, we've been talking about frictionless buying and frictionless selling, right? Where, you know, if companies really want to kind of sell more product, have highest customer satisfaction, and for people to actually, you know, feel comfortable buying products, services, real estate, whatever it is, but to be able to do that where, you know, you've perhaps got, you know, less third parties in the way, you've got less red tape, less friction, right? That's really what it is. You know, I think that does nothing but help the market, right? Because if suddenly you realize actually it's not going to be that painful, you know, I'm going to be able to conduct all of my legal transactions online, digitally. I don't need to travel backwards and forwards. You know, I think that really kind of can give, you know, a market like Dubai a real boost compared to, you know, somewhere like the UK where, you know, you still need, you know, almost like these crazy interactions with solicitors purely because they've got to justify their money. I mean, I do, you know, I'm very bitter about this. It annoyed the hell out of me for months.
It sounds like we might go off on a tangent. I might try and reel you back in.
It does get me going. But the point is, you know, it puts me off doing it again, right? Whereas if I had a positive experience, well, I might, you know, very much kind of look forward to doing it again, knowing that that's not going to be a problem. And I think Dubai definitely gets that part of it right. But yeah, I mean, just I think just the question, Helen. And so during this time, did you find people making transactions by maybe doing virtual viewings, or were they still kind of waiting to see if they can touch and feel the property, or what was your kind of experience with that?
I think it became definitely a part of the search. It doesn't replace actually viewing a property in person. You know, having said that, I did rent something the other day by sending a video to somebody in the UK and they booked it. But hey, so you know, and maybe that's because they've adapted to this a bit more. But I think the physical element of visiting a property is definitely going to stay part of it. But I think that going through a virtual tour or a live viewing could potentially become a natural part of the process.
Yeah, I think there's a qualification perspective for sure, because I think sometimes, whether you're renting or whether you're buying, you never see one property, right? You see multiple properties. And I think if you can eliminate 60% of those through virtual viewings, I mean, I think people are a lot more respectful of time. I think, one of the things you said earlier, we were all kind of very much used to jumping on Zoom calls, video conferencing of whatever format. But having multiple, 20-minute calls, 30-minute calls, I think everyone felt very, much more efficient with that kind of process. And I think going back to, visiting 7 or 8 properties in the height of Dubai summer is not, is not fun. So yeah, I think it's part of that qualification process. But I tagged you into something on LinkedIn this morning. I don't know whether you saw it. Okay, so that's a no. But basically, what was interesting is one of my connections in the US. He's based out of San Francisco, and San Francisco real estate is crazy, right? Purely because of Silicon Valley and Palo Alto, and I think it's bird flying around me. Sorry, I don't know if that came on the screen. But anyway,
problem at your place as well. You do seem to attract these wild animals to interfere with your broadcast.
It's literally just whizzing past my screen. Here it goes again. Sorry. So completely forgot what I was saying there. But actually, no. Here we go. So my friend in San Francisco, and obviously his company have turned around and said, look, we don't need you back in the office until at least January. And he's saying, well, I'm spending like $7,000 a month renting a 2-bedroom apartment, whatever it is. This makes no sense. So basically, him and his wife were recommended to a real estate agent in Denver, which is where they're from, and went through the entire process of buying that property without stepping foot in it first. Everything was done online. The relationship with the realtor was hugely important, and actually in that post there's a lot of mention of that, where that person fully trusted understood our needs. We built a relationship, we spoke in depth about exactly what we were looking for, and now we've been in this house now for 2 weeks, having gone through that whole process prior to that, and we couldn't be happier. And I think it's changes like that where if people are looking at almost even big decisions like that, like family homes. I think technology and Matterport. I think Matterport's a really, really strong tool for that, where you can have virtual kind of walkthroughs, walkthrough properties. I think things like that are really kind of important. I'm kind of interested to see how this kind of plays out, and especially from that kind of frictionless environment perspective, because it would be great if I want to see a property, I get to see it now, right, rather than maybe booking an appointment for whatever. But yeah, I think we've come a long way in such a short space of time.
The technology piece as well. I mean, with the virtual tours, there is wearables now, right? So you can, actually have a proper virtual tour. So I wonder if, similarly to where some tour operators and some, tourism boards have really leveraged the power of virtual reality. So, you can be sitting in London, but experiencing tabletop, mountain and seeing around you and interacting with people. I wonder if, there may be something similar from a home perspective. I mean, you can pretty much get, the glasses, and you can set it up on your your mobile phone. So I think, yeah, you kind of definitely get a real vibe of the place. And if you're able to walk around the property and see the garden, see the space, at least as you said, it acts as a qualification process. You know, you may look over and see, oh, there's like a, you know, a DEWA station over there. What's that there? I'm not really, and it didn't show on the plans, obviously. I mean, I had a question around, you mentioned that obviously now people are looking potentially to work from home and they're looking for dedicated space. I mean, do you think that this could potentially impact? So now we're kind of talking 3-5 years out, and obviously, you know, this place is continually being developed and globally. Do you think that this may be a requirement now then for villas? So instead of the kind of 3-bed plus maid plus, it's going to be 3-bed plus maid plus study. I mean, do you think that this is going to be one of those things that just becomes a norm then?
I think so, yeah. I think that office space, because, you know, during lockdown, and hopefully it won't recur again to have to do that. But I think a lot of people getting used to that environment where you've got your children and your pets and everything else going around you, and you're sat at your dining room table, is you know, that they'll want an allocated space to be able to lock away and you know, and do their day job. So I think developers themselves are going to probably have a lot to take away from this. There's got to be value add to have a dedicated workspace. Yeah.
There's a big thing in the States at the moment, and I guess globally, where people are also more inclined to stay at home. So there's been a huge rise in, you know, swimming pools, right? And kind of building pools or getting these kind of jacuzzis, or, I mean, I think whoever owns the franchise for Intex in this part of the world is just printing money at the moment. It seems like everyone's got, you know, which obviously in the States is very much a redneck thing, but an above ground pool seems to be the norm here. So I wonder as well if people perhaps, you know, move into improving their home space, you know, in that as well, because there does seem to be a lot of that activity. Where you said less people are inclined to travel. You know, if you've got a beautiful property and you've invested in a property, perhaps you want to kind of, you know, make that even more practical, let's say.
Well, another couple of features that came out of our survey was increased activity in the kitchen. So people cooking more and exercising at home. So again, you know, I think the layout and the space in kitchens will you know, I think it's just, you know, in a way where it's sort of fast forwarded us from a technological point of view. It's grounded us in the sort of home and family environment, you know, and you're going back to kind of roots before all of this movement was you know, the usual, you know, activity of human beings. So people are more grounded in their home space, which I think is, you know, is a really positive thing for the property industry, because there's obviously going to be movement of people adjusting and buying or renting something that is more suitable for them. Savills in the UK actually reported their strongest June ever.
Wow.
In their history, in residential.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's such a good point, where, you know, that kind of work-life balance now has probably been, it's probably more than now than what it's been for years, right?
Yeah.
You know, just purely because the two have kind of merged a little bit, but you know, you're not losing time in commuting. You know, you're not coming back from an hour's drive in sort of stressful traffic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for it. No, I think certainly, I think your industry is one that I there'll definitely be some sort of positive ramifications from this whole scenario, and I think especially, you know, with you know, second waves are kind of hitting, you know, many parts of the world. So, you know, we're not in the clear. So I feel as if, yeah, this, you know, these trends are going to continue for sure. I think just to go back onto some of the marketing and sales side of it, Helen. We kind of, I guess our journey working with you started a few years ago, but we always looked at you as one of those kind of pioneers in the market from a marketing standpoint. So when HubSpot was very new to the region, actually, I think you were possibly our second HubSpot client here, which, very, very, very early on. And at that time, I don't believe there were any other kind of real estate agencies actually that were using the software as well, certainly in this region. Whereas now it's, seen as a kind of go-to resource for kind of forward-thinking real estate agencies. So, aside from being the Oracle, Helen, I mean, like, what's what is it about, tools like that, which have kind of, which you believe in, which you believe have an important role in your business, and and what are the kind of reasons for that?
So, Dubai real estate is heavily reliant on the portals. There's no denying it. I'm not saying we particularly like it, but there's no, we have, you need to be, put yourself on the pitch to be past the ball. So you can't walk away from them. And I think, through my relationship with you guys, when we had Prime Places, you were the one that educated me about the HubSpot system and the inbound marketing as a new concept, which I totally got. And, we did capitalize on since we signed up to HubSpot in Prime Places. We used, in a way, my knowledge to advise people, and it was, and what we got out of that was profiling them, sellers, buyers, investors, etc., and it was really getting to know our database and building and nurturing relationships. And I think that's a very different approach from just putting up an ad on a portal. Because it's quite a sort of crude way of searching for property on a portal, whereas if you can put that sort of human touch to what you're trying to convey, whether it be about a property or a community, whether it's an update in the law, whether it's changes or advice on tenancy contracts or anything like that, we did it all through HubSpot and got to know our database better. As you know, on the back of using that, because it was quite innovative at the time, we won marketing awards, the International Property Awards, and that was one of the features of it, because it was new to, I suppose, our industry. It's let's face it, it's not the only system that would do similar, but I think it is one of the most advanced from the research that we did, which is hence why we signed up with it. And I'm happy to say that that system went across to Savills as well. So I think it's a very powerful tool. So
yeah, thank you. I kind of look at this and some of the things that you've said so far on the show today, about kind of still building stronger relationships with customers or potential customers. I guess it's tools like HubSpot which really kind of come into play here, because it does allow you to, not just understand people more from a kind of digital standpoint, but in the void of perhaps not seeing them face to face. That's where a lot of this kind of data really comes in handy, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm thankful that we had the system in place before the lockdown, because we could still communicate with our clients effectively. Again, I think it's becoming more the norm to people aren't offended by the content that we send out, because it's advisory, it's knowledge, it's and you don't, it's not, you know, it's not buy this, it's new launch, and you know, it's sharing. And I think that what I loved about it the most was I was able to share my knowledge, you know, digitally with my sort of client base. And you know, and we did all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, you can be very creative about how you use it. You can put surveys through it. You can, you know, do all sorts.
Yeah, no, awesome. I think one of the things I feel as if, you know, moving forward, I think the CRM piece becomes important, you know, which very much kind of works alongside the marketing piece. But I think one of the important aspects moving forward, and HubSpot have been very kind of strong in pushing this product, and that's the service element now, where, you know, they can understand, you know, customer feedback and bring that into the whole ecosystem as well. You know, one of the tools that, you know, within HubSpot suite is the Net Promoter Score survey, you know, which is, you know, that simple kind of recommendation of, you know, would you recommend, you know, our business to, you know, your friends or colleagues on a scale of say 1 to 0 to 10. And I think getting feedback like that, I think, is important. But I guess in this sort of COVID age, things like online reviews, customer feedback, how much of an important role does that play, you know, when you are looking to sort of engage with new customers or work with new investors?
It does play an important role. I mean, obviously, you know, customer feedback is hugely important to us, and you know, and you know, and you got to be bold if there are mistakes being made. You need to face up to them, and you'd rather be told about them than you know, not and wonder why you're losing business. You know, I mean, it provides a platform then for correction. And obviously good feedback is happy days for anybody, and you know, and then we ask if we can share that happy feedback with our other customers. So you know, I think things like that are really important. You know, we only have so many hours in the day as humans that we can speak to our customer base, and I think, you know, certainly from any real estate agency perspective, we're all very busy running around and, you know, sort of, you know, closing down sales and rentals and everything else, and providing customer service. And if there is an automated system backing you on nurturing relationships that can produce a pipeline of business, then, you know, I mean, happy days with that. So we do, you know, we as human beings just can't do it all ourselves. And I think, you know, that really is the way forward, and the clever people among us are going to, you know, be helping and advising our clients, you know, all the way along. So, I mean, I did a blog on wills not so long ago, which is a bit of a morbid subject, but the response I got was amazing.
Right.
Amazing. You know, and I'm not trying to sell them anything, I'm just advising.
Right. I think that's it. You're kind of, it's that thought leadership piece. You're building your own trust and credibility within your own audience. It definitely plays a strong sort of role there. I've got one more question. But before we do that, guys, if you've got any other questions or any questions for Helen, please feel free to send them through. So you've got Q&A button at the bottom of the page. Feel free to use that as a channel. Andrew, you know, I guess what I'm going to do is refer back to one of our previous shows, and we had Paul Bridger from Rove Hotels on the show. And Helen, why I think this might be relevant is because, you know, we kind of spoke at length about the role that OTAs, online travel agencies play. You know, people like Expedia and Booking.com, and the role they play within the kind of hotel and hospitality segment. You know, you mentioned, you know, the kind of love-hate relationship between, you know, the portals that are over here. What are your kind of thoughts on those portals kind of moving forward? Do you know, are they kind of here to stay? Have they got stronger during COVID? Are people more reliant on them? Or do you feel it's, you know, it's kind of time for, you know, brands or businesses like Savills to really fully control that relationship between someone who's potentially looking for a property and you guys who can potentially help them find one?
I can't see in the near future that portals won't retain that their share of the market and the strength that they have. There's a lot more behind it, I suppose, with portals from a regulatory point of view that could make that experience better than it is now. And the portals are trying to, or they do support the regulatory view laws, but I do believe there's a lot more to be done to make that customer experience better. So I think they'll be part of our market for the next few years to come. But outside of that, I think there is also a lot more ground that could be made with real estate companies, particularly if I'm talking about real estate, that the engagement with clients and picking up new prospects that can be done beyond that. One of the things I find with inbound marketing, where we put out content and sort of, as you say, thought leadership, knowledge and advice, is that we get unique leads. You're not having somebody that's searching for a house in the ranches and they're talking to 20 agents. And so they've got loads of people in their ears and they forget who you are and what they've seen with you and blah blah blah. These unique leads are brought to you by people that trust what you're saying and they want your advice and they want to engage with you. And the other side of it is that you can pick up people ahead of the curve. So I had an inquiry this morning through another blog that I put out through the lockdown. It was advice to landlords for the different situations that were occurring, which was, hell and back, because, people losing jobs and the government was saying you need to let them leave, no penalties, everything else. So I put a piece out about advice to landlords during COVID. And I literally, that was 2 months ago, and I had an inquiry today from a landlord saying, my tenant wants to leave, he doesn't want to pay a penalty, blah, 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 what shall I do? Now, that landlord has not advertised his property yet.
Right.
So it's a very unique lead picked up in a unique way. Yeah. So that's where I would differentiate the inbound marketing versus portals. I would love to be able to generate all of my business that way and not have to pay a hefty fee every month to portals, of course. But there's a challenge, because if you take an instruction of a property, the owner of that property is going to expect to see it on the portals.
Sure.
So
Catch-22 in its purest form. Andrew, have you got any questions just to wrap up? Or,
I wanted to, just to kind of touch on it, but it's a huge subject, but again, it's obviously you're from that residential piece, but you're still involved in real estate, collectively. And I just wondered how do you feel the impact if you're seeing more and more people looking at home office space and less people traveling? How do you see this impacting, just as an opinion, the kind of commercial space, from an office perspective? Do you think that there's going to be that reduction in size, or is it going to be a very Dubai thing where, that tower over there, I can get a much better price now, I'm going to move my office from here to that tower because I can have a higher floor? What do you think with regards to kind of commercial and office space?
I think from a price perspective, businesses have obviously been through, plenty of review as to their overheads and everything else, and I think there's going to be a degree of evaluation around that as to, if they've got hefty, sort of plush offices that they're renting, they're going to be wanting to manage those costs depending on what their industry is. So I think there will be movement. And I think the view of, you know, sort of office space for companies, I mean, our office is in Orenco Tower, just as an example, which is a huge tower on the Shadeside Road. We're on the 22nd floor. And the experience before COVID was that you had to wait for one of 6 lifts to come, and then there would be about 8 people in the lift, and the car park, if you weren't there by sort of 8 o'clock, you'd be on P6 or P7 or whatever it is. You go in there now, the lifts are absolutely like, you know, press a button and it's there. Nobody else in it, and you know, you can park on one of the first levels that comes up. So I think that's a personal experience, but you know, for a tower that big, there is definitely a reduced occupancy in there. And that's not people just cancelling their offices, it's people working from home, and you know, the companies have their office space all, you know, intact. But so I can't see that companies are going to be paying for these big spaces if there is, you know, this sort of indicative 50% that are going to be used to working from home. I've spoken to many clients and many friends, and they're primarily based from home now. And I know we're not out of the woods yet, and it can alter a bit more from now. But I just think it would have changed faster if it was really going to change. You know, if it was going to get back to normal. So yeah, I think there is going to be I think. I mean, social distancing obviously means that offices will probably want a bit more space between people, so it's going to have that effect. But at the same time, you know, with home-based people, so it's going to be interesting. I'm not an expert on the commercial side of things, but you know, I can see and feel kind of what's happening. But yeah, I think it's the dynamics of the offices. I think we'll see more in the next 12 months. You know, when lease agreements come up for renewal or whatever. So I think it's early days to judge on that, really.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously had an open plan environment for our offices since, you know, the beginning of it, especially moving to Grosvenor Business Tower. I mean, in all honesty, what I've done in this week, and nobody knows this, but I'll tell you now, I've dragged in the pinball machine, I've dragged in the PlayStation, the plasma, the sofa. So what I've done is I've just created a massive office for myself now. So got a makeshift door. But I mean, you know, joking aside, that, as you said, space-wise, is that kind of, you've got to, if you are coming back to the office, there is social distance. I mean, it's most offices now have, you know, the ones I've been to have got a big cross. You can sit here, you can't sit here, you can't, you know. So yeah, it is interesting for sure.
I think what it showed us is, you know, even you know, humans, we kind of, you know, find change quite difficult. But what's happened is, I think we crossed that threshold maybe about 6 to 8 weeks into COVID and working from home, where all of a sudden it became really comfortable. You know, so the amount of people who in the early days just absolutely hated working from home, didn't feel as if they were being productive, you know, to suddenly now, actually, I'm much better off at home. I'm in no rush to go back to the office. You know, there's been almost like that full transition. And I think, you know, from our perspective, we're already looking at kind of redesigning the office so that it turns into more of a collaboration hub as opposed to an office now. Because, you know, I think if you know, people like myself and the other partners are perhaps more comfortable working from home, then it makes no sense to force others to work from the office. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be an interesting year, and especially when these lease renewals come up, I think it's going to be some fairly upset landlords around. But we'll have to, we'll have to see how that goes. I think, Helen, honestly, I think on that note, I think, you know, it's been great having you on the show today. Thanks for all your input. Thanks for being so candid and for sharing your insights and your experience. You know, as a veteran of the real estate industry, you haven't let us down.
Bye.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. But no, it's been brilliant having you on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
And Helen, how can any of our viewers? I think this is going to be a podcast very soon. How can any of our viewers, listeners, how can they reach you if they're looking for insight to help with their real estate needs?
Yeah, so I'm at Savills. What would you like? My telephone number or my email address, or
whatever you want to share?
If you want to publicly put out your telephone number, that's fine.
No, probably not.
But I mean.
No, I mean, I'm not obviously contactable on LinkedIn when I look at it. No, it was a joke. LinkedIn, otherwise it's helen.tatham@savills.me is my email address. So yeah, any questions, any overviews, anything that you want to talk to me about, feel free.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much, Helen.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks. See you later, guys. Bye.
Take care.